We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Powers of X issue 1 of 6 from Marvel Comics in the year 2019. This was written by Jonathan Hickman. R.B. Silva was the artist. Inks by R.B. Silva and Adriano De Benedetto. Marte Garcia did the colors. VC's Clayton Cowles letterer. Tom Muller design, whatever that is. R.B. Silva and Marte Garcia did the cover art. Cover's alright. That girl's face looks weird. Annalise Bissa was the assistant editor, Jordan D. White editor. From what the guy at the comic shop was telling me, these are actually called Powers of 10 and House of 10. I don't know why they would do that if the book series is the X-Men and all your titles have been X something, like X-Men, Extreme X-Men, X Factor, and then you want to make it a 10. First of all, that's not even a funny joke. It's just stupid. Second of all, it's kind of lazy. And third, it's very confusing for the customer. Alright, so the cover's okay. The Rasputin girl's face looks weird, but this is jumping across timelines in, of course, Powers of 10. Get it? It's a math joke. Ha! Nerd humor. Okay. Now we see Xavier for a hot minute talking to Moira McTaggart. Then we see some stuff getting done. Mystique handing off the flash drive she stole from the Fantastic Four. And we get a little bit of a lecture from Charles. And then we jump way into the future where we see some Sentinels who are, of course, completely useless. Really, either make the Sentinels an actual threat or stop using them, because everybody else would have if they're ineffectual. So this Rasputin character is fairly interesting. She's sort of a cross between Magic and Colossus. And one of these hounds gets captured. There's a bunch of wasted space, lots of talking, and some other stuff happens. Like my complaint with the last issue, there's about 8 to 10 pages of white space. It's just these white computer type pages with lots of dead space. This book could have been a $4 book if they had cut those out and put the text in them into caption boxes. I know they're doing this for stylistic reasons, but I find it to be a gigantic waste of space, and it's effectively a slap in the face to the consumer because they're paying for these pseudo ads and they're really lazily done. So I don't like that. And there's a 2-page spread where they give the credits and the copyright information. More wasted space. You take all that out, you got a $4 book at best. The story's okay. It takes place in the future. It looks like it might be in a time past the Days of Future Past to talk about different clones, that sort of thing. It's an okay story, like I said. I didn't mind it, but I don't really care about any of these new people. They didn't give me a reason to. There's a bunch of like clones, I guess, people that were genetically bred to be certain ways, and I thought some of it was a little boring, but overall it was okay. The art's okay. I'm not a huge fan of the style, but it's fine. My main complaint is that it wastes a lot of space and I have no idea what's going on. This one at least had some kind of progression for the story, so I'd say it's actually a little better than House of X issue 1. But again, Hickman seems to be taking everything that was done in the last 20 years and coalescing it into making the X-Men into supervillains. I don't like that. I want them to be heroes like they used to be. But you work with what you've got. And instead of going back to an earlier time like Claremont's run, he seems to be taking up the mantle of Whedon and Morrison and making the X-Men more into a terroristic group or separatist group. And I think that's kind of boring. It's already been done. It was done with Asteroid M, Genosha, etc., etc. And I'm kind of bored with that. I'm not really enjoying this series yet, and I kind of doubt that I'm going to. I will give it a chance. I talked to my comic shop guy, and we had an agreement that I would read both miniseries as long as I got a good discount on them. So I'm gonna do that, but I don't have high hopes that the X-Men are going to be anything I recognize from the times when I enjoyed the storylines from the 80s through most of the 90s. So that being said, I would recommend this if you want to read the rise of supervillains, because that appears to be what this is really about, and I don't care for those kind of stories, so it's not really my thing. But if that's what you're into, it looks like it's going to have a lot of sort of revenge fantasies against humanity, and it's real down on humans. So if you're into that, I guess there's going to be something here for you, but these aren't characters I recognize or care about. So that's just my opinion. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Powers of X issue 2, or Powers of 10 issue 2, whatever you want to call it. This is written by Jonathan Hickman, art by R.B. Silva, inks by R.B. Silva and Adriano De Benedetto. Marte Garcia was the color artist, VC's Clayton Cowles letterer, Tom Muller design, cover art by R.B. Silva and Marte Garcia. I have one of the variant covers, looks like it's by Mike Huddleston and Yasmin Purdy. I think they don't really tell you who did what. It's just kind of all wedged together. The cover's a cool pinup, but tells me nothing about what's going on in the book. So we find out a few things about the past, with Moira's influencing Charles and Magneto is given some information from Moira's memories. And then we jump forward several years to year 10, where Scott is talking with Xavier and Magneto about what is on that flash drive that was recovered, or more appropriately stolen, from the Fantastic Four, and we learned that there is a secret mother mold which creates master molds, and Charles and Magneto think this is actually what spawns Nimrod. I'm not ruining too much that hasn't been ruined in the press. Then we jump forward into the future again, and we see what Nimrod's up to and what the current X-Men of that era are attempting to do, and we get a whole bunch of these 2-page spreads and 1-page excerpts of a bunch of wasted space, and then they jump further into the future and we see something happen that isn't explained until right afterwards, but a lot more paragraphs, and then the issue just sort of ends. This would have been better as a graphic novel. If you get a chance to pick it up in trade paperback, I would just do that. It'll be out around the same time as issue 2 of the new X-Men series from the sound of it, but I don't know. This definitely ties in with House of 10, and you kind of have to have read the first couple issues of that to know what is going on with Charles and Magneto. I don't like the way Charles is drawn. He looks more like the lady that played the Ancient One in the Doctor Strange movie than he does Charles Xavier, and he's got really creepy, weird eyebrows. And Magneto is age indeterminate. There are scenes where he looks older, like he's in his 50s, and there are scenes where he looks like he's like 25 or 14. I can't tell. This artist doesn't do age well. Otherwise, Nimrod looked really cool. All the stuff in the future looked really awesome. The future X-Men look really cool. So it's just kind of a difficult thing to tell what certain people are supposed to look like how how old they are, that sort of thing. And all the wasted space of these white pages, there is a lot of dead space in here. A lot. If they had taken it out, this could have been a $4 book. Instead, they waste it with these fluffy inserts that mean nothing and do nothing and contribute very little from what I could tell. There's a few of them in here that are more important, but it's all stuff that could have been condensed down into a smaller space and shown to us with visual images. Because, I don't know, maybe it's a sequential art book. Jonathan Hickman has a particular style, I get that. That style just seems to annoy me for some reason, because I'm paying an exorbitant amount of money for this book. At $5, this could have been knocked down to a $4 book if they had taken a lot of those pages out, because some of them are very, very unnecessary and very pointless. Although I did not hate this story, I did not love it, and it's taking too long to get somewhere. They're obviously padding a little bit for the trade paperback. Either that or Hickman has some weird pacing issues. I think your money would be better off buying it in trade paperback so you could get the complete story and go through it all at once, because this looks more like it makes coherent sense as a trade or a graphic novel than it would as a weekly series like it is. As is, it's kind of confusing, and a lot of the stuff that needs explaining isn't being explained. There's no explanation with the Charles Xavier Magneto scene. You have to have read House of X 1 and 2 before reading this in order for it to make any sense whatsoever. A good third of this book you won't understand if you haven't been reading House of X or House of 10. I don't want to hear about it in the comments because I'm going to use them interchangeably because they screwed up and didn't tell us what it was really called. So that being said, I would recommend the story if you're an X-Men fan and you like villains, because that's what it looks like the X-Men are becoming, or separatists and or villains. I don't particularly like those stories, series, but I do find the future stuff intriguing from the 100 years ahead part of the story. I find that interesting with Nimrod and all that. The far future stuff is a little bizarre and nebulous and doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me yet, but I will keep reading the series. It's interesting and well written enough that I'll check it out. The art's pretty good except for a few things that I already complained about. So yeah, I would recommend it, but I would also say don't pay the $5 for it. I don't think it's worth that kind of price. I think a lot of the pages are wasted with these weird white technical diagram type things that really should have been condensed down and put into sequential art if they're going to be included. Otherwise it reads oddly and is very distracting at times, and it just makes me feel like they're padding it to charge more money. For the average person that wants to jump into X-Men, I would say pick this up as a trade paperback. Wait for it to see how it pans out and if the story comes together with recommendations as to being a cohesive plotline, because this story is going to be, I think, a little complicated, and it would be better to have the whole story in front of you if it's worth the money at the end. So I would just wait and see how it plays out, and don't give Marvel the extra $5 for these overpriced, wasted pages. So it's still pretty good so far. So as of now, it's a recommendation, but not at cover price, and I would recommend waiting till the trade. But that's just my opinion. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Powers of X issue 3 of 6, published by Marvel Comics in 2019. This is written by Jonathan Hickman, art by R.B. Silva. Marte Garcia was the color artist. Species Clayton Cowles was the letterer. Tom Muller design. R.B. Silva and Marte Garcia did the cover art, which is actually a pretty cool pin-up style cover. The Sentinel looks awesome. Assistant editor was Annalise Bisa. Jordan D. White editor. C.B. Smolsky editor-in-chief. Alright, so this issue actually has some payoff. Apocalypse, Wolverine, and Krakoa, or whatever the plant guy, swamp thing looking dude's name is, are trying to get into a mainframe to retrieve some important information, while the others are up top causing a distraction. Things go pretty horribly wrong for everybody in this one. Nimrod catches on to what they're doing, he goes down to stop them, and Apocalypse and him duke it out. It's a pretty cool fight sequence, pretty well done, and we have a real interesting twist ending that I kind of saw coming based on some of the hints they left earlier, but it was a cool way to end the issue, and it definitely changes things quite a bit. All in all, this was a solid issue, and I would definitely recommend it. My problem with it is that the white pages are still here, and they clutter up the book considerably. I see what they're trying to do with it, to give it kind of this computer look to it, but it really takes up a lot of extra pages and gives you very little. They could have shrunk it down to 1 or 2 pages. Instead, it takes up a good 6 pages in the book, and that's what's inflating the cover price from $4 to $5. It makes it look like a cash grab, and it makes it look like they're padding for the trade. I don't like that. I don't like being ripped off. And Marvel has a pretty good track record of trying to get me to buy stuff for an inflated price that I don't need and don't really care about, and it's usually low-end garbage. This is actually really well written, and it really does tie things into House of X. You need to read this issue before House of X issue 3. It'll make a lot more sense, and story-wise, that's the progression they want you to take. There are some qualms I take with the art, but overall it looked pretty good. The androids looked really cool. Apocalypse looked really cool. Nimrod looked great. The backgrounds were fantastic, and the story itself was pretty solid. So this is actually going to go somewhere, it looks like. It doesn't look like they're just leading us on. So I'm interested to see where House of X issue 3 goes and where the 4th issue of this one goes. So this is a definite recommend, but you're going to have to read the first issues and House of X issues before this in order to get anything out of this. As a standalone book, it is terrible. There's a couple of cool fight scenes, but none of it's going to make any sense. So you're definitely going to have to read both miniseries for this to make a cohesive story. Still going to recommend it, but that's just my opinion. As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Powers of X issue 4, also known as Powers of 10. I don't even care which it is anymore. This is written by Jonathan Hickman, art by R.B. Silva, Marte Garcia did the colors, VC's Clayton Cowles letterer, Tom Muller design, Annalisa Bisa was the assistant editor, Jordan D. White editor, C.B. Cebulski editor-in-chief. I have a variant cover. I think it's by Jorge Molina. The cover's actually pretty cool, but doesn't really tell you anything about what's going on in the book. That's probably for the better. Alright, we go back in time to X to the power of 0, X-Men Year 1, and we see Charles Xavier and Magneto talking to various Mr. Sinisters, and it's kinda silly. To the point where it's like the villain is laughable. Mr. Sinister I always thought was kind of this cool, like, mastermind kind of character. Now he's just silly. And they kind of make it a joke. And then we learn a little bit about how they developed a relationship with Krakoa. Then we jump far into the future, and it's a plot that doesn't make a whole lot of sense so far. This is kind of a filler issue. I would say it's probably irrelevant, but it's probably not. It's just not relevant right now. It does fill in a few gaps from what we've read previously, but again, there's nothing here that you're going to enjoy if you haven't read every single issue of Powers of 10 and House of 10. So this issue will make zero sense if you haven't been reading this series. So that being said, I wouldn't recommend jumping on here, but it's not that bad of an issue. I'm not a huge fan of the art style. I think it looks a little rough. And the stupid blank white pages with little bits of goofiness on them, they're really silly in this one. That inflates the cost of the book by about $1, because this would be a $3.99 book if they cut all these white pages out. They take up a lot of room and they're dumb, and they don't seem to really add anything. There's a 2-page spread just to give the credits, and 1 page of that is just the copyright information and a giant X symbol. What a waste of a page. Well, as usual, there's about 6 of these pages throughout the book, and that honestly comes to about $1 worth of entertainment. I was kind of bored with this issue. It was okay. It explains a few things. Some of the art looked really cool. The colors were really good. I like the colors in here. But overall, it was just kind of okay, and it felt like a little bit of a waste of $5. This issue really felt like padding for the trade paperback, so I felt a little cheated on that front. Is it worth $5? Probably not. Not to me. So far, the X-Men haven't really been made into heroes again. They're just sort of separatist guerrillas, as far as I could tell. They're turning them into supervillains, from what I'm getting out of this. Not real impressed with where the X-Men are going, but I will read the next issue. I just am not particularly impressed with what I've read so far, on this issue especially. Overall, it seems okay, but we'll have to wait till next issue to find out. So this is kind of middle of the road. If you're already invested in this series, you'll probably want to pick it up, but I don't know, it's starting to lose me. I don't really like supervillain stories, and I'm getting kind of bored with this. It's dragging out. It really should have been 1 series instead of making it 2 titles, but then they get to make a bunch of variant covers for a quick cash grab. So this is just a Marvel cash grab issue in my opinion. I don't know, we'll see where it goes. So I'm kind of undecided on this one. Sorry, that's very vague, but if you're not already reading the series, don't bother jumping in here. It's not going to make any sense. If you're already reading the series, you probably want to pick this one up. That's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Powers of X issue 5. This is written by Jonathan Hickman, art by R.B. Silva, color art by Marte Garcia, letters by VC's Clayton Cowles, Tom Muller did design, R.B. Silva and Marte Garcia did the cover art. I have the regular cover. It's okay. That doesn't actually happen. It's just a pinup. It's kind of boring. It's alright. Annalisa Bisa was the assistant editor, Jordan D. White editor, C.B. Cebulski editor-in-chief. This issue is a bit of dry. It's mostly some behind the scenes stuff. We see Xavier talking to Forge, and we learn how he upgraded Cerebro. And then we also get to see Xavier in the modern time talking to Magneto and Emma Frost. And we learn a little bit about Emma Frost's involvement in things and how they form a council. They call it the Quiet Council, and who some of the people are on there. And also some of the other people involved in the process here, other people that were invited to the island, that sort of thing. We also see Namor, and that was interesting. And Namor's his usual self, kind of a jerk, which I always thought he had a lot of potential to be a really cool hero character, but they like to go back and forth with that quite a bit. And yeah, he's always been kind of a jerk, but I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of negativity in these books, like a lot of anti-human negativity. It's very kind of disturbing in some ways, because they really seemed intent on making the X-Men into villains. And we do see some of the dark future stuff some more, but there's a lot of wasted space in here with the techno-babble pages, stuff that doesn't seem to actually matter. It's just sort of flavor text, sort of like when you get an old D&D module and you look at it and you read through it, and it's just a bunch of like fluffy description stuff mixed in to pad the page count. That's how a lot of this stuff feels. There's like a couple pages where there's just one sentence, and then it's a tribute to the person that actually says it in this issue. So that was a little insulting. If they would tone down some of the fluff, this could have been a $4 book instead of a $5 book. And I've gotten the impression that these are largely cash grab ways of getting an extra dollar. And the only reason they have 2 series instead of 1, I think it's because they wanted to get extra money out of the extra variant issues. Like, we'll release 2 number 1s simultaneously, and we'll get all the extra variant cover revenue. So I think that's kind of jaded my perspective. Plus the fact that it's called Powers of 10, but every X-Men book they've had previously used the X and it wasn't a Roman numeral. So that's very, very annoying. That's just bad marketing. And everybody's been calling it Powers of X except for people that are really, really diehard on it. So it's really annoying. But overall, this was kind of a fluffy, pointless issue. Some of the background stuff was okay. The art's okay. It's not bad. It's just this is more trade paperback padding in my opinion. Some of the detailing is kind of important, but I think should have been told to us a long time ago. I understand that's the storytelling technique they want to go with, but it just makes it seem as if this is just padding for the trade paperback, which it probably is. So I would recommend it, but just be aware it's a talking book, and there's probably not a lot that's going to be resolved in this miniseries. This is all build up for the regular X-Men book. So that being said, it's okay. I don't think it was worth $5, but I can see why other people will say otherwise. I just think this should have been a bonus material piece in the collected edition as opposed to another issue in the miniseries, but that's just my opinion. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Powers of X, or Powers of 10. Issue 6 of 6 from Marvel Comics 2019 miniseries written by Jonathan Hickman. R.B. Silva and Pepe Larraz were the artists, Marte Garcia and David Carell color artists, VC's Clayton Cowles letterer, Tom Muller design, cover art by R.B. Silva and Marte Garcia. I have the Foreshadowing variant edition. I don't know what that means because it doesn't tell me on the inside who specifically did this cover, so I can't give them credit for it, but there were variant covers by Mike Huddleston, Javier Garrón and Rochelle Rosenberg, Dustin Weaver, Cafu and Jesus Obertov, John Tyler, Christopher, Giuseppe Camulucci, I don't know, Scotty Young, etc. Alright, that was a convoluted long thing. So we flash back to the beginning of issue 1 of House of X where Charles meets Moira, and we learn what happened with this Phalanx storyline and what that was really all about. And we also get some closure a little bit on what's going on with Moira in the timeline. And that's kind of the entire issue. It's really just an end cap. This is all just leading into the new X-Men series. For a $6 comic, I felt really cheated. This really did not wrap anything up. It explains a little bit about what they were doing, but this is all foreshadowing. This entire miniseries and the House of X miniseries, or House of 10, I don't want to get corrections because I don't care. It was all just foreshadowing. There's nothing resolved. This is all just setting the X-Men up, and they look like villains through this entire thing. As usual, Marvel doesn't understand that they make their money off of selling heroes to people, not villains. Villain books traditionally don't do very well and don't last very long. There are a few exceptions, granted, but the X-Men have been heroes for 40 years at least, and now they're suddenly villains. That's not really going to go over very well with a lot of fans, especially older fans like myself that want to read hero books. They want to read about people trying to get along and doing outreach to help people understand them. Instead, this is a book about angry separatists who want to fight against everyone. That's not what's made the X-Men successful. It's made successful by appealing to the outsiders who want to fit in, not angry, bitter people who want to fight against everything. That's not a successful formula because there's not as many of those people. So I don't know why they're going down the villainous path and fighting humanity and seemingly want to make them extinct, but here we are. I don't know how well this is going to go over with people, but I have very little interest in this. I've already committed to several issues of the new series that are coming out. I think X-Force, the regular X-Men, and Fallen Angels are the ones that I already pre-ordered the first 2 issues of, and I regret that now because I have very little interest in reading villain books. That being said, this was very well written. The art is pretty solid. I had no issue with that. I just have issue with the storyline they're going with. And if Marvel wants to make villain books, that's on them. They're already doing miserably in sales. What's a few more? This book has been selling well, but a lot of people that I've talked to haven't liked the villainous angle of this. They come off sounding more like murderous Weather Underground members or the Black Panthers. I don't know how well that's going to play in the long term, but I don't want to read villain books, so I don't have a whole lot of interest in these titles. But that's just my take on it. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.